everybody, my name is Tanya and I have another book haul for you. So at the end of July I had a weekend up in Melbourne and I went to a couple of events at the Melbourne Writers Festival, which I've never been up to before but just happened to spot a couple of things that looked really interesting this time around. So I went to a couple of events on the Sunday and bought some books there and got them signed. But I made a whole weekend of it and I was in Melbourne on Saturday as well, and I may have done a bit of a bookshop crawl on the Saturday as well. So here are the books that I bought the day before I went to the Melbourne Writers Festival, and then I'll get to the books that I bought there. So it's obvious from watching my channel, and I've said it before, I'm an incredibly eclectic reader and kind of anything goes, and this must be one of the strangest, most random hauls. There are no words. But hopefully that means there'll be something for everybody in here. We'll just see. Okay, so the first bookstore that I visited that day, I came out with 6 things. The first 2 are a couple of books in a series that I have been collecting. I didn't actually realise that these further ones had come out, but I snaffled them up, and they are books 4 and 5 in William Shakespeare's Star Wars. So I've shown some of these, I think it might have been my Beautiful Covers tag video, where I spoke about the books that are based on the original trilogy. And so basically these are exactly what they sound like. They are the stories of the Star Wars films, but turned into Shakespeare plays. And that concept just makes me so happy. I haven't actually read the first 3, but I do own the 3 books based on the original trilogy. They've now put out the second trilogy, the kind of prequel trilogy, and so I grabbed those ones. So I've got the Phantom of the Menace and the Clone Army Attacketh. These are put out by Quirk Books, and I just really love the design of these and the concept behind them. I think it's fantastic, and I think they are going to be a lot of fun when I finally get around to reading them. Next up I have something that I've heard about a lot from Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings, and that is Bobcat and Other Stories by Rebecca Lee. I don't really know all that much about this, except that Mercedes absolutely loved it, and as I've spoken about before, I'm not the hugest reader of short stories, but watching Mercedes makes me want to read all the short stories. And I read How to Breathe Underwater by Julie Unger, which is another one that Mercedes loved, in August, and I absolutely love that. And I think my thing of not reading a lot of short stories is I've just not known the good ones to try, and so Mercedes is the fountain of knowledge on short story collections, so I'm really excited to try this one, and it sounds amazing, so I'm sure I'm going to love it as well. On the back it says, Rebecca Lee goes to the heart of what it is to be human, to feel, to believe, to think, to love. It turns heartbreaking and wise, tender and wry. Bobcat and Other Stories establishes Lee as one of the finest and most original voices in contemporary fiction. The next one is something that I picked up because of a book in the book haul that I've just filmed, and that is The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford. I received the kind of follow-up to this one, Love in a Cold Climate, from Ange from Beyond the Pages, and after I received that one I wanted to get to this one first, and I spotted it in the bookstore and had to snaffle it up. This one is also on the 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list, so win-win. And the back describes it as one of the funniest and sharpest novels about love and growing up ever written. And as I said in that video, everything that I've heard about Nancy Mitford sounds delightful, and I'm looking forward to getting to this. It just sounds like a lot of fun, and I really like these covers actually. I think they're beautiful, so I'm glad I've got them in matching copies. Next is something that I was really excited about when it first came out, that I never picked it up, have heard really mixed things, but loved a previous book by this author, so I'm going to get to it eventually, and now I own it, and that is A Dark Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely loved Vicious when I read it last year. I thought it was fantastic, and so I'm really excited to read more by V.E. Schwab. I'm sure you've heard this one described many times on BookTube, although it's died down now. I'm definitely behind the times with this one, but I finally got around to purchasing it. This one is set in kind of parallel Londons, so we've got various different Londons which have different levels of magical ability, and a character named Kel who is able to travel between each of the different Londons. As I said, I've heard mixed things about this, but if it's anything like Vicious, I think I'm going to love it. And then the last book I got from this bookstore really just epitomizes, it just puts the nail in the coffin of how weird this book haul is, and that is You Deserve a Drink by Mamrie Hart. Mamrie Hart, of course, is on YouTube, You Deserve a Drink, and she is hilarious. I really do enjoy watching Mamrie and Grace Helbig and Hannah Hart. And I now own each of their books, although I've not read any of them yet, so now maybe that I own all three, I'll get around to reading them. I haven't been watching them so much lately because just booktube, but when I do get around to watching them, they make me laugh so much. As maybe at some stage I can have a Holy Trinity book marathon to read each of their books. We'll see how that goes, but now at least I own this one too. Next up, I went to a comic shop, and I've never visited a comic book shop. I don't actually generally buy graphic novels. Most of the graphic novels that I've read this past year I've either borrowed from the library or I've received in a quarterly box or something like that. But this one, I just thought I'd go and check out a store, and so when I was in there I wanted to buy something, and this is something that I heard about from Elizabeth at Books and Pieces, and she really convinced me it sounded fantastic, and that is ODY-C by Matt Fraction and Christian Ward. This one is a kind of gender flipped retelling of the Odyssey in space, and that just blows my mind. Sounds amazing. I read the Odyssey around this time last year, actually. It would have been August 2014, and I really enjoyed it, and so just the whole concept of this is fantastic. I haven't picked it up yet. Hopefully I will get to it. But if there's a reason that's happening, I am well stocked in another graphic novel to read. I really enjoyed the Odyssey. I thought it was a lot of fun, so I have high hopes that this one will be just as fun. And so that wasn't enough. I visited one last bookstore and I got a couple more books. The next one is an author that I've heard about a lot on BookTube, especially from Alicia from Ex Libris. I know she's one of her favourites, and that is The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. This is another short story collection, obviously, and so again wanting to explore more short stories, and this is another author that I've heard fantastic things about. And I've also heard that Suzanne Collins got a lot of inspiration for The Hunger Games for The Lottery, so I am extra intrigued to read that one. And the last book that I've got for this portion of the book haul, at least, it was a total random buy for the day. It's something that I spotted on the shelf, really loved the look of it, the description sounds fantastic, and that is The Fox by Sean. And so this cover is absolutely stunning. We've got the black background and then kind of the subtle blue fox over the top, which is just beautiful, but the storyline of this one sounds fantastic as well. Set against the stark backdrop of the Atlantic winter, an elusive, enigmatic fox leads a hunter on a transformative quest. At the edge of the hunter's territory, a naturalist struggles to build a life for his charge, a young woman with Down syndrome, whom he had rescued from a shipwreck years before. By the end of Sean's slender, spellbinding fable of a novel, none of their lives will be the same. It's also a teeny tiny little thing, and it's got very big writing and very sparse on some pages, so I think I can really nip through it in no time at all, but it just fascinated me and it came home with me too. So now on to the Melbourne Writers Festival itself. I went to a couple of events on the very last day of the festival. The first one was an event with John Marsden and Hannah Kent, and they were talking about convicts. I've spoken about John Marsden a lot on my channel before, and he was the main reason that I went to this event. He was an absolute favourite of mine as a child. So he writes predominantly for kids and for young adults, but his first adult book was released, and I read that earlier in the year, and that was South of Darkness, which is a convict tale of a young boy who was transported from London to Australia back in the convict times. And this was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I already own this one, so I bought my copy along to get it signed. I actually saw John Marsden speak 15 years ago now as part of a school trip, which is fantastic. And at the time I had brought along one of the Tomorrow series. This is the 7th book in the series, The Other Side of Dawn. I got this signed at the time, and I got this one signed at the event at the end of July. So there are 15 years between these signatures, and you wouldn't know it because they are absolutely identical. They both say Tanya, happy days, with an exclamation mark, John Marsden, and the line underneath. I kind of walked away from getting South of Darkness signed and went, this looks kind of familiar, and I came home and I dug this up, and yep, not much has changed in 15 years. And so as I mentioned, John Marsden was also speaking with Hannah Kent, and they were talking about convicts. Hannah Kent, of course, is the author of Burial Rights, which I didn't own and I haven't read, so I picked this one up at the event. This one, of course, as you've heard many times on BookTube before, is set in Iceland, and it follows the true story of a woman who was condemned to death for murder. And I've heard such fantastic things in real life through BookTube, and I just haven't got around to this one, so I picked it up at the event, and of course I got this one signed too. And then the second event that I attended that day was very exciting, and that was for Sarah Waters. And so she was talking about her latest book, The Paying Guest. So she spoke primarily about this one, but she talked in general about her books, and she was fantastic to listen to. You'll have been hearing a lot about Sarah Waters on BookTube, and I'm really enjoying reading her works. I've only read 2 of her books so far, Fingersmith last year, and then a couple of months ago I read The Little Stranger with a group, and so when I was there, I picked up a few of her books that they have for sale that I didn't own, so I picked up The Paying Guests. This one is set in 1920s London and is about a family who isn't very well off and are kind of obliged to take in lodgers and what happens at that point. It sounds amazing. I've heard really fantastic things about it, and hearing Sarah talk about it and read from it, I'm really hoping I can get to this at some point soon. And since this was the one she was talking about, I got this one signed. But they did have some other Sarah Waters books there for sale, so I picked up the ones that I didn't already own. So I've got Fingersmith, which, as I said, I have read this one already and absolutely loved it, but I didn't actually own my own copy, so I've snaffled that one up. This one is set in the 1800s and follows kind of a den of pickpockets and a scheme that's going down, and this book just kept surprising me. It was so fantastic and I absolutely loved it and would highly recommend it. And the last book I got was actually her first novel, and that is Tipping the Velvet. I've not read this one yet. Hopefully I can get to it soon. This one sounds like a lot of fun. I think it follows some really colourful characters and kind of looks at the nightlife of Victorian London, and it sounds wonderful too. And I can't wait to get to everything, basically. I almost forgot, I've got one last book that I purchased that day, and that is Dark Roots by Kate Kennedy. This is another author that they had at the Melbourne Writers Festival, but I didn't actually see her speak. But when I was looking at the pop-up shop there on site, they had books from different authors that had been featured in the festival. This one is a collection of short stories, and it sounded fantastic, so I'm branching out and trying some more things. Her stories are populated by people at tipping points in their lives, moments that find them poised between a familiar past and an unfamiliar future. In the Testosterone Club, a neglected wife plans an unsavoury revenge for a boorish husband. In Resize, a married couple realise their too tight wedding rings may symbolise wider aspects of their relationship. And in Cold Snap, a young boy senses that the newly arrived tree changer may have some sinister intents. Heartbreaking, evocative, and richly comic, Dark Roots unveils the traumas that incite us to desperate measures and the coincidences that drive our lives. Quite a lot of the books in the bookstore there they had were signed editions that obviously the authors had signed when they were there. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any signed ones of this book, but that's okay. I am really looking forward to reading this one, and yeah, hopefully I'll find time for all of this soon. So here are the 14 books that I managed to acquire over the course of one weekend. But I'm really excited about everything here. There's a bit of booktube influence, there's a bit of just general stuff that I've been meaning to get for a while, and a couple of just totally random new pickups. So I am really excited about everything here. If you've read any of these ones or if you've got any questions, let me know down in the comments. And if there are any that you'd like to see me read sooner rather than later, do let me know. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!